You ever feel invisible? Like truly invisible? Not in a cool superhero way, but in that soul-crushing do I even exist kind of way? That's been my life for the past 2 years. My name, well, the name on my cheap employment ID is Anna Garcia, and I spend my days scrubbing, polishing, and tidying the obscenely large, sterile mansion belonging to the Ashworth family. Think gleaming marble floors you could eat off? And trust me, sometimes crumbs from their $1,000 catered parties are my lunch. Minimalist furniture that probably costs more than my college degree, which I actually have, by the way, and wall-to-wall glass overlooking spectacular city views. Views I only see while dusting streaks off them. I'm the housekeeper, the hired help, the woman they barely make eye contact with, unless it's to point out a missed spot or complain that their imported silk sheets weren't folded with precisely 16-inch creases. Have you ever been talked asterisk around asterisk instead of asterisk to asterisk? Like you're just part of the scenery, a functioning appliance? If you have, then maybe you get it. Mr. Ashworth, Jonathan, he's usually barking into his phone about stock prices or synergizing deliverables, barely registering my presence unless I forget to refill his stupidly expensive sparkling water. Mrs. Ashworth, Beatrice, is worse. Cold, imperious, inspecting my work with white gloves literally sometimes. She communicates mostly through passive-aggressive notes left on counters, smudge on faucet, dust bunnies under credenza unacceptable. Then there's Tiffany, their 20-something daughter. Spoiled doesn't even begin to cover it. She treats me like her personal servant, demanding coffee, leaving designer clothes strewn everywhere, expecting me to magically clean and fold them, and often making deliberately cruel remarks about my uniform or my lack of ambition, usually just loud enough for me to hear as she flounces past. Why do I put up with it? Why trade a promising future for this? It's a long story involving family implosion, betrayal, and a desperate need to disappear, to be someone completely unremarkable just for a while. I needed to be off the grid, under the radar, and Anna Garcia, housekeeper, was about as invisible as you could get. My real life, the one before, well, let's just say it involved a world the Ashworths think they inhabit, but couldn't truly comprehend. A world of innovation, not just inheritance. A world built by my father, Alistair Finch. The asterisk. Alistair Finch, tech visionary, billionaire recluse, the man whose software probably runs half the systems the Ashworths use without a second thought. He and we had a falling out, a monumental one years ago, about the pressure, the expectations, the golden cage I felt trapped in. I wanted anonymity. He wanted a successor. I walked away from it all, the name, the money, the legacy, determined to make my own way. Prove I wasn't just his daughter. Taking this job was an act of rebellion, maybe? An overcorrection? A way to find something real in a world that felt increasingly fake? I don't know. Mostly it felt like hiding. Some days, scrubbing Beatrice's pristine bathtub or sorting Tiffany's endless laundry, I'd catch my reflection. And I wouldn't recognize the tired eyes, the faded uniform, the woman who kept her head down and her mouth shut. Where was the fire? Where was the girl who debated coding ethics with Nobel laureates by the time she was 20? She felt like a ghost. The Ashworths, oblivious, treated me exactly as they perceived me. Poorly educated, unimportant, disposable. They'd have loud, obnoxious arguments right in front of me about their yacht club politics or Tiffany's latest scandal, never once lowering their voices or acknowledging my presence. It was like being a fly on the wall of their vapid, privileged lives. The humiliation was a constant, dull ache. Tiffany once accidentally spilled her bright red smoothie all over a white carpet I'd just spent an hour cleaning. "Oopsie, Anna," she'd giggled without a hint of remorse, tossing the empty cup towards the general direction of the bin, and missing. "Guess you have more work to do." Beatrice overheard the whole thing and just sighed dramatically. "Do try to be more careful with the upholstery this time, Garcia. Not Tiffany, asterisk me, asterisk. It was my fault for existing near her clumsy daughter. I swallowed the rage, the shame, like I always did. Went to the kitchen, got the special enzyme cleaner Richard would have insisted on, only the best, and got down on my hands and knees. Just another day being invisible. Until the day the invisibility shattered. I was polishing the ridiculously oversized silver P in Jonathan's ostentatious office. He wasn't even there, probably out synergizing, when my cheap burner phone buzzed in my pocket. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, thinking it was spam. But something made me answer. Is this... The voice on the other end hesitated, using my real first name, a name I hadn't heard spoken aloud in 2 years. Alistair Finch's daughter. My blood ran cold. How? Who? I'm calling from St. Jude's Hospital, the voice continued gently. There's been an accident. Your father, Alistair. He collapsed. He's asking for you. It's critical. The silver P slipped from my numb fingers, clattering loudly onto the polished floor. Alistair Finch. My father, critically ill, asking for *me*. The carefully constructed walls of my anonymous life, the invisible cloak of Anna Garcia, just disintegrated. My past, the one I ran from, the world I tried to erase, was crashing back into my present with the force of a tsunami. And the Ashworths? They had absolutely no idea who they'd been ordering around all this time. That phone call fractured everything. My carefully built anonymity, my precarious sense of control gone. I stood there in Jonathan Ashworth's ridiculously opulent office, the fallen silver piece gleaming accusingly at my feet, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. My father, Alistair Finch, the titan of tech, the man I hadn't spoken to in 2 long, bitter years, was dying. And he was asking for *me*. I barely remember the rest of that day. Mumbling some excuse about a family emergency to a dismissive Beatrice, rushing out of the mansion, leaving the polished P lying there like a fallen soldier. I felt dizzy, disoriented. The world outside the Ashworth gates seemed brighter, louder, terrifyingly real after the muffled existence I'd been living. Getting to the hospital was a blur. It was a private wing, of course. Top floor, security heavier than Fort Knox. Even getting an asterisk was a challenge. Name? The stern-faced receptionist asked, barely looking up. Giving my real name, Elena Finch, felt foreign. Like putting on a costume I'd long since discarded. She checked her list, her eyes widening slightly as she found it. Suddenly, the deferential treatment kicked in, the "Right this way, Miss Finch," the hushed tones. It was sickeningly familiar and utterly jarring after 2 years of being Anna Garcia. And there he was, my father, smaller, frailer than I remembered, hooked up to a symphony of beeping machines. His eyes fluttered open as I approached, focusing on me with difficulty. Elena. His voice was a bare whisper, strained. All the anger, the resentment, the years of hurt I'd carried, they just evaporated. He looked so vulnerable. We didn't say much. What was there to say? Years of unspoken words hung heavy in the air, but he reached out, his hand trembling, and I took it. His grip was surprisingly strong, a faint echo of the formidable man he'd been. I sat with him for hours, watching the okay. Let's recap. Grief-stricken? Check. Wrongfully accused of theft by truly odious employers? Check. Unexpectedly inheriting a tech empire and a secret world-changing project? Big check. It was enough to give anyone whiplash. But staring at that letter from my father, reading about Project Nightingale, something shifted. The fog of grief didn't lift, not entirely, but a new fierce clarity cut through it. Protect the legacy. Finish what he started. And the Ashworths? They were a pathetic footnote, but a footnote that needed erasing. First things first, clearing my name well, Anna Garcia's name. Catherine's legal team handled the Ashworth's petty theft accusation with terrifying efficiency. A single phone call from a Finch Corp lawyer, calmly explaining that Miss Garcia was prepared to counter-sue for defamation and wrongful termination, and mentioning offhand that perhaps Finch Corp's security division should review the Ashworth's home security footage. The accusation vanished faster than Tiffany's interest in anything requiring effort. Beatrice Ashworth even sent a stammering, backpedaling voicemail, suddenly remembering. The silver letter P had simply been misplaced, and offering Anna her job back. The utter arrogance. I had the lawyer politely decline, adding that Miss Garcia has moved on to other opportunities. Oh, if they only knew. Stepping back into the world of Finch Corp felt like stepping into an old, slightly uncomfortable suit, but it fit. Catherine was my rock, guiding me through the corporate labyrinth, introducing me to key players, briefing me on the current state of affairs, including the vultures circling Project Nightingale. Certain board members were already making moves, scheduling meetings, talking about reallocating resources and sunsetting non-viable projects. Translation: kill Nightingale and sell off the valuable AI tech to the highest bidder, probably one of their buddies at a rival firm. They saw Alistair's death as their opportunity. They saw *me*, his estranged daughter who'd been MIA for years, as a non-entity, easily manipulated or sidelined. Just like the Ashworths, they underestimated me. Big mistake. I spent the next few weeks in deep dives with the Nightingale team. Brilliant, dedicated scientists and engineers my father had handpicked, working in a secure off-site facility. Seeing their passion, understanding the sheer potential of what they were building. It was intoxicating. This was the legacy. This was worth fighting for. The board meeting where I officially took my father's seat was tense. You could feel the calculation, the barely concealed dismissal. I walked in, not as Anna Garcia, not even entirely as the daughter they vaguely remembered, but as Elena Finch, CEO, acting for now, but that was just a formality. I kept my introduction brief, professional. Then I dropped the bombshell. My first order of business, I announced, my voice steady, projecting confidence I didn't entirely feel, is to fully fund and fast-track Project Nightingale. It will operate as an independent subsidiary with its own board, reporting directly to me. Its security protocols will be tripled, effective immediately. The shock around the table was palpable. The lead vulture, a slick board member named Marcus Thorne, who I knew had ties to competitors, sputtered, "Elena, I say. With all due respect, that project is a drain. It has no clear path to monetization. Alistair indulged it, but..." Alistair believed in it, I cut him off coolly. And as the sole heir and controlling shareholder, so do I. Finch Corp isn't just about profit, Marcus. It's about impact. Nightingale embodies that. It's non-negotiable. I let my gaze sweep the table, meeting every eye. Anyone who doesn't align with that vision is welcome to tender their resignation. Silence. Thorne's face was puce. He knew he'd lost for now. The power had shifted. Might not like it, but they couldn't ignore the controlling shares. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. Thorne and his allies would try other tactics, corporate sabotage, leaks, internal politics, but they knew they were dealing with a Finch now, one who wasn't afraid to play hardball. And the Ashworths? I almost forgot about them. Almost. One sunny afternoon a few weeks later, I decided a little closure was in order. I didn't send lawyers this time. I went myself. Not to their mansion, oh no. Jonathan Ashworth fancied himself a major player in the city's finance scene, always lunching at the Griffin, the most exclusive old money power lunch spot in town. I knew he held court there every Tuesday. So, Tuesday it was. I walked into the Griffin, not in a housekeeper's uniform, but in a sharp designer suit that screamed quiet power, courtesy of a much-needed shopping trip Catherine insisted on. Heads turned. The maitre d' practically tripped over himself, rushing towards me. "Miss Finch, an unexpected pleasure. Your table is ready." He led me to the best table in the house, coincidentally, right next to where Jonathan Ashworth was holding court with two other smug-looking suits. Ashworth froze mid-sentence, his fork hovering over his $80 lobster salad. His eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed in confusion. He knew asterisk. He recognized me, but couldn't place the face outside the context of his marble hallways. "Anna," he mouthed, almost silently. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. "Actually, it's Elena," I said clearly, my voice carrying just enough. "Elena Finch. You remember my father, Alistair Finch? Although you probably knew me better when I was scrubbing your floors." The color drained from his face. His lunch companions stared, jaws slack. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Ashworth looked like he'd been electrocuted. "Finch," he stammered. You're his daughter and his heir," I finished smoothly, letting the words hang in the air. "Funny how life works out, isn't it? One day you're accusing someone of stealing silverware, the next—" I let the sentence trail off, giving him a look that conveyed everything: the humiliation, the injustice, the fact that I now held more power in my little finger than he held in his entire inflated ego. I didn't need to threaten him, didn't need to ruin him, though the thought was tempting. Seeing the blood drain from his face, the dawning horror as he realized he'd been treating like garbage, the utter collapse of his perceived superiority right there in front of his peers. That was enough. That was perfect. I simply nodded politely to him and his stunned companions. Gentlemen. Then I turned and followed the maitre d', leaving Jonathan Ashworth choking on his lobster salad amidst the ruins of his own arrogance. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud or destructive. Sometimes, it's just quietly stepping into your power and letting them see exactly who they messed with. My name is Elena Finch. I'm my father's daughter, and I'm just getting started. Dot machines breathe for him, the silence broken only by beeps and my own choked breaths. Lawyers came and went, faces grim. His longtime COO, a woman named Catherine I'd known since childhood, filled me in quietly. A massive stroke. Prognosis, bleak. He faded in and out. In a moment of lucidity, he looked right at me, his eyes sharp for a second. "The legacy, Elena, it's yours. Protect it." Then he was gone again, slipping back into the unconsciousness he wouldn't emerge from. He died 2 days later, just like that. Alistair Finch, the man who reshaped the digital world, was gone. And I, his estranged daughter, the housekeeper, was adrift. The funeral was surreal. A media circus outside, industry giants and tech billionaires whispering condolences inside. I stood there, numb, accepting sympathy from people who had no idea I'd spent the last 2 years cleaning toilets. Catherine, bless her, ran interference, handling the press, shielding me, but I saw the curious glances, the whispers. "That's Elena? Alistair's daughter. Haven't seen her in years. What happened?" And then reality crashed back in. The Ashworths. I hadn't quit, hadn't formally given notice. I just disappeared after that emergency call. I knew I should call, explain, tie up loose ends, but the thought of facing them, of trying to explain the inexplicable, felt overwhelming. Before I could figure out how to handle it, they handled it for me. I received a curt certified letter at the temporary hotel Catherine had arranged for me. It was from Beatrice Ashworth. "Miss Garcia," it read coldly, "your sudden and unprofessional abandonment of your duties is unacceptable. Furthermore, several valuable items, including a decorative silver initial, appear to be missing from Mr. Ashworth's office since your departure. Consider your employment terminated. We've also filed a report with the police regarding the missing items." My blood turned to ice. They were accusing me of *theft*? Over that stupid silver letter P I dropped. It was ludicrous. It was insulting. It was typical. They couldn't conceive of me having a genuine emergency. It had to be something nefarious, something fitting their low opinion of the help. The injustice of it, piled on top of my grief, ignited a spark of the old Finch fire within me. How dare they? They thought I was just some insignificant housekeeper they could kick around and discard, even accuse of being a criminal. They had no idea who they were dealing with, but dealing with them felt small, petty, compared to the sudden weight of my father's legacy. Catherine sat me down a few days later, huge binders spread across a boardroom table. "Elena, she said gently but firmly. We need to talk about Alistair's will. And about Finch Corp. Turns out, my father, despite our estrangement, never changed his will. I was his sole heir. Sole heir to everything, Finch Corp, the patents, the stock portfolio, the properties, the number Catherine mentioned, the estimated net worth. It was staggering. More money than I could even comprehend. Enough to buy and sell the Ashworths and their entire gaudy mansion 100 times over. Along with the will, Catherine handed me a letter from my father, written months before his stroke. His familiar, precise handwriting filled the page. He acknowledged my anger, my need for distance. He even, startlingly, admitted he understood why I ran. He wrote about his regrets, about the pressure he put on me. But the world needs innovation, Elena, he wrote. It needs integrity. Qualities you have in abundance, even if you don't see them in yourself right now. Finch Corp isn't just about profit, it's about potential. I know you ran from it, but maybe you were always meant to come back and reshape it. Not as my successor, but as yourself. And then a P.S. that made my breath catch. P.S. Catherine has the details on Project Nightingale. It's time. Project Nightingale? I vaguely remembered him mentioning it years ago. Some secretive R&D initiative he was passionate about. Something revolutionary, potentially world-changing. Something the board of directors, including figures close to competitors, had tried to shut down. He'd kept it alive, quietly funding it himself. Catherine filled in the blanks. Nightingale was groundbreaking AI, designed not for profit or control, but for humanitarian aid predicting famines, optimizing disaster relief, connecting isolated communities. It was Alistair's true passion project, his attempt to counterbalance the more ethically gray areas tech often fell into, but it was vulnerable. Without him, certain board members, maybe even competitors who had spies on the board, a constant fear of Alistair's, would surely dismantle it, steal the tech, bury it. He trusted only you to protect it, Elena, Catherine said, her eyes searching mine, to see it through. So here I was, grieving, accused of petty theft by the awful family I'd just escaped, and suddenly holding the keys to a multi-billion-dollar tech empire and the fate of a potentially world-changing project my father entrusted solely to me. The Ashworths thought they fired Anna Garcia, the timid housekeeper. They had no earthly idea they'd just poked Elena Finch, the billionaire heiress with a legacy to protect and absolutely nothing left to lose.